Good morning, good afternoon and good evening everybody. Thanks for taking another look at one of these videos. This time around we've got a Hot Wheels 2011 Subaru Impreza. So first of all, and most importantly, I want to just wish you all well in these troubling times at the moment. I know we're all going through it globally as a community, as a family of human beings, and it is very sad times and it is very worrying times. But I just wanted to say I hope you're all safe, and I hope we can look back on these videos in a few years' time and think, crikey, we all got through it. So please, 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 I hope you're all safe and sound wherever you are. So I'm trying to bring a little bit of cheer into your lives at the moment. Here's my latest video, and I'm doing a very basic build this time. Not much modifying and detailing as always, but not a great deal of modifying on this 2011 Subaru Impreza. And I'll just quickly point out as well, when I do refer to a date of the car, I do get a lot of thankfully the spam filters catch all the effing and jeffing at me. That isn't a 2012 Supra, blah 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 blah. I'm just referring to the casting date from Matchbox, Hot Wheels, Majorette, whatever it is, not necessarily the actual car. I think I've mentioned it in the past, but sometimes I may not have done quite as well as I should have done. So for that I apologise. I'm referring to the casting date of the car. So this is actually a 2009 model Impreza, which is used. As always, great detailing on the actual casting once you strip it down. I've already done videos on removing bodies, removing paint, which you can look, and I will check and show you in the description below if you want to go to it. But for those of you that haven't, here's this, it showed up quite a lot in the early videos, this little pot of magic sauce. If you look at my videos how to remove paint, you'll see what it is. But this has been topped up once, as you can tell by the colour and all the other bits of paint and decals left in there. It's literally only cost me £5-6 quid over 18 months, so it just keeps going and going and going. So let it soak in there for, it says an hour, but to be fair, I leave it overnight and it just gets it really nice and smooth underneath. And for those panel lines that are left that I've got a bit of paint in, simply use this scriber or dental pick. You get a pack of dental tools off eBay and off Amazon. Again, there's a link. I've got little suggested tools on my Amazon links, so you can see where I get them from there. But it just comes off really easy once you let it soak for a fair few hours in the little pot of paint remover. So back onto the car then. This chassis's only got one mounting point from the front. It tucks in at the back in the moulding of the chassis. Matchbox did this loads in the 70s and 80s, probably longer than that to be fair. Just catch it in on the rear, which is not really a fan of because it sort of throws everything else out of proportion, but it is what it is, and we've got what we've got. So I'm going to remove the wheels and tyres at the moment by simply cutting off one of these little lugs, lug I suppose, and they come out really, some come out easier than the others. I say it comes out really easier, some come out easier than others, but with that removed, I'm just going to cut and use this modeller's saw again just to remove these exhaust bits at the back. So I'm going to show you some and show you how you can make better music than well, no, I can't make better music at all. I don't know what I'm referring to there. Just make the nice little tingy twangy noise there, I suppose. But I'm just going to saw it away just by tickling it round as you go at an angle and cutting a slither off. It's a lot safer than using a knife. So by sawing away at it like this, you get a nice little slither away. And for those parts that are left, I can use a little file just to sand it all down and shape it all. I'm not going into massive amounts of detail with this one for reasons which will become apparent towards the end. But one thing I do want to show you is some of the requests I've had of how I make a little exhaust. for the rear, which I'll come on to in a short while. The wheels I'm going to use for this is a great 3D printed ones again from a chap called Turbo Sheep. I'll put his link in the description as well to his eBay store where you can buy them from. And again with the wheels and tyres, an eBay guy called Threeinches, again link in the description. And once I've given these a quick coat of primer and paint, which I'll do off camera, I'll just throw these tyres into some hot water just to make them a little bit softer, because I've done it in the past and forced them on, and if you don't hurt your fingers you'll break the parts basically. So a little bit of hot water and you'll make them nice and soft to get on. So with the axles themselves, I'll use my little paper clip method by simply bending one out and holding them in some pliers and just giving it a light little tap into shape. Other people have mentioned different methods, and there are other methods, drilling holes and sticking them through and pulling them tight and holding them in some pliers and using a drill bit and spinning it around. And this one is literally as quick as you've just seen it, by holding it in some pliers and tapping it out. So I simply just do that. And once I've glued one of the wheels on, I simply put it back in. And this is the reason why I only cut off one of the lugs, because more often than not you can thread it back through again if the interior part hasn't got some of these little cutouts to hold it down, which I'll show you in a second. But by simply threading it through, you can sort of mostly catch these little lugs again, so you're not totally butchering the mounting points, if you like. So once you've got one side on, you can offer it up and get a good indication of where you need to cut it the other side, so it lines up nice and neat. And once it's glued in place, you've got these little cutouts on the bottom of the interior part, so it just sandwiches it nice together and hold it in place, the wheels. And they always like actually this car looks like another car that I've got. I always like looking at, some of them look really good in this state when you've just got them both put together like that. But this actually reminds me of a car which actually got me back into collecting. Well, I say got me back into it, it's 20 years ago now. It was a car, we just moved into a first house and we were randomly shopping and I saw it hanging up there, and it was this Lotus Elise 340R. And it's just actually reminded me that whilst I was into 1/24th scale plastic model builds, it was actually this point, this car itself, and it's what's just reminded me, because it looks quite similar now, putting it up side by side, which got me back into doing die casts again. So I had a sabbatical away from it for, I don't know, 10-15 years, from my early teens back into my 20s, and then I randomly saw this car and it got me back into the die cast again. So there you go, it's a little bit of digress away from where I was. So here we have already starting to look a little bit better with these wheels and tyres on. And as I say, I'm not going to go too over the top with this, and just show you how I make these little exhausts. And it's 3 pieces, straightforward. I use some solder, some styrene and some of these little electrical ferrules, but these solder pieces are really easy to cut, really easy to bend. You won't harm yourself, you can straighten it back up again, and it's a really good scale piece of exhaust pipe. And I use it for the manifolds as well when I'm doing engines, which I will do a video on coming up in 2 videos time. So what I do is cut a section of this styrene tube, and it's 2mm outer diameter, 1mm inner diameter, and it will simply slip straight over that part. And then with these little electrical ferrules, I can never pronounce it right, replicate the exhaust tips really well. So once I've cut a section of what would be the back box effectively, with a little tickle of the drill on one end just to open it up ever so slightly, not going all the way through, sort of halfway through this little piece of tube, you can then slip this ferrule bit on the end. It's a tight fit, but you can glue it if you want to. It will replicate the back box section with the tailpipe sticking out, and then with the other end it will simply slip over, or into should I say, the back box section, and once you put a little bit of paint over that styrene tube, you've got yourself a rather good replica little exhaust. Again, you can bend it to however you want, and there you go. So how I make a little exhaust. So for this one, I'm just going to do a couple of little channels in the back of the car underneath, because this back box will foul it and it'll just push them down a bit, and it won't ride effectively. So I'm just going to make provisions to making it look a little bit flusher by using this rotary tool and just channeling it out a little bit. But you'll see now effectively what I'm trying to do, and I may just have to deepen it, lengthen them channels just to get it to sit a little bit more neater, because otherwise they're going to stick out a bit too far, I think. Yeah, it's going to end up looking like a wheelbarrow. So just a little bit more work, but you effectively get what I'm trying to achieve there on this pipes at the back. And there you can see this number plate now where it holds in on the back. It sort of throws the scale out a little bit, but again, it is what it is. So the glass on this, as I say, I'm not a massive fan of coloured glass, dark glass, and this light that I've got is actually showing in. It's quite bright, but it is actually rather dark, so once it's all put together you can't really see in there anyway. So I'm not going too overboard with this one interior wise, because it's going to get hidden anyway, and I don't really want to make new glass for this one. So I'm just going to remove the headrest just so the shadow lines in the back, or the silhouette of it in the back, just to make it look more like a two-seater race rather than a four-seater. And I'll simply sand them down just to take off this rough edging, but once it's in, it's hidden anyway. There you go. And then on this, it's a simple two paint job on this one, and I'll primer it first and then I'll mask it off. And for those that have seen my other videos know that I make my own decals, and for this it's no different. You'll be able to get these online as well if you visit my website sk75works.co.uk, and there you go. I've just let the cat out of the bag and shown you the end result. Oh well, yeah, we'll keep on going with it, but yeah. I don't know what to say with that now. All the other cars that I've built in the past, you can get them on there as well. So on to masking it now. Stay with me though, there is a surprise at the end. On to masking it now. I use this Tamiya masking tape. It's really good. Other people say they have had problems with it. I've never had any problems with it. Cuts really nice, and it seals the deal impeccably. I think it's really good, but I know in the past when I've used it, a few people have said that they don't like it. But once I've cut the bits to shape, and it's not much, thankfully, I've got to do on this other than keep the centre section black. But for this, I will use an airbrush. I like to use, if I've got the paint, I'll use a can. I always say that. If I've got the paint, why crack this open? Because it is a pain in the backside to keep using. Good for doing the detail work and the fine lines, and this is one of them, because using a can on a masked up job tends to it will bleed underneath effectively. So at least with this fine pattern you get with an airbrush, it's enough by doing some slight dusting of the first few layers, just enough to seal between the paint finish and the masking tape so it won't bleed underneath effectively. But two very light coats, and 2 to 3 sort of thicker, heavier, wetter coats, if you like. But with about 5 to 10 minutes in between dry time, and I'll leave it just hanging out of this spray booth just over a radiator, just so it's slightly baking away, if you like. I'll just show you how good I find this tape. It's, I'd say, no bleed. It's had no bleed. Yeah, it's all in the preparation. I've always said that. It's all in the preparation. If you do a half-arsed job, you'll get a half-arsed finished. You always will. So just spend a little bit of time getting it lined up right and getting it pushed down and sealed right, and all should be good. So for now, all that's left to do is apply some of these decals. As I say, there is more to this in a short while, but for now, this is how it originally looked. Always looks rather basic without the headlights painted in. And this is my version, the Chemblock Monster Energy Hoonigan version, with some photorealistic lights and grills, all the little Chemblock insignia and DC Shoes insignia on the back, blended in front to rear with some white toner decals, and those exhausts there. And I've got to hand it to the American marketing machine. They always do a good job. Rallying's been around for years, drifting's been around for years, rallycross has been around for years, but I've got to hand it to them. Hoonigan, Chemblock, Monster Energy, you know, for bringing it to the masses. It's been a while now. Obviously, it hasn't been overnight. It's probably, what, 10 years or so in the making, I guess, maybe now, since it did Hoonigan 1. Maybe not that long, but, you know, it seems to have been quite around. But here's my miniature version of said car. But I have bigger plans for this theme, and I wanted to lead it in with something. So for now, I'm going to dip in and show you its new spiritual home. I hope you like it.